Hello everyone and welcome to SkillCapped. I'm Notorious Dub and today I'm going to be going over one of my most asked questions recently. How can I use Deathmatch to improve in Valorant? Now, so many pros and streamers say that Deathmatch is the best way to improve and up your game, and in a way they're completely right, but playing Deathmatch mindlessly without direction isn't really going to do much for you. So today I'm going to be going over everything from having a growth mindset when playing, talking about establishing good habits while you play, specific goals you can focus on and how to improve, and even delving in at the end of the video to teach you guys how to actually win a deathmatch game so you can see how different it is from what you should be doing to improve. But before we get into that, do you find yourself struggling to win gunfights? Are you a bit lost on what you should be doing in game? Or maybe you find yourself stuck at your current rank? Well, don't worry, as our brand new hyper improvement system is specifically designed to solve these problems. At SkillCapped.com, you'll finally learn how to improve your aim, different techniques to win gunfights, and so much more. We have professional courses on every single agent, map, and mechanic in Valorant. This is also backed by top pros, players, and coaches to make sure you're getting the most up-to-date and accurate information possible. In fact, we're so confident that you'll improve using our system that we offer a rank improvement guarantee. Check it out yourself in the link below, simply put in what rank you're currently stuck at and find out what rank you're guaranteed by using our system. So, what are you waiting for? Unlock your true potential and get the rank you've always wanted at SkillCapped.com. Link is in the description below. Alright, so first things first, we have to start off with a strong foundation for improvement. So, you have to be focusing on what you could be doing better. Now, this is from the beginning of the game before it even starts, all the way through the game, and once the game is over, you should be establishing the weaknesses and strengths in your play and finding pieces of your game that you want to be improving on specifically. Now, Deathmatch is a very fast-paced game mode, and it's easy to get caught up in the pace and just play mindlessly or get tilted and stop trying to improve. But keep in mind, we're playing Deathmatch to improve, not to win. So whenever you die, try to think about why you died and what you should be doing better or differently to stop you from dying that way the next time. And I'm going to be going over the most common issues I've been seeing people have, but try not to chalk it up to just, I missed my shot. Try to go deeper and find something that you can fix now that would have made that kill easier to get. And learning how to do that is going to come with time, and it'll get easier and easier as you continue to do that. But one thing you can start implementing now is to start the game off with one specific thing that you want to focus on to improve. And that brings us to focusing on creating good habits, because in most cases, it's going to be the most useful thing about Deathmatch. It's the ability to create good habits to help you win duels, and is one of the best things to actually focus on when using Deathmatch to improve. And the one habit that I recommend to everyone, at least if they're new to tactical shooters, is to focus on hitting headshots only. Now, I know that seems simple and everyone wants to click heads, but the majority of people still go for body shots because they haven't ingrained it into a habit to instinctually just aim for the head every time they see an enemy. And when I say focus on hitting headshots, I mean make that the only goal. You should be saying to yourself that you don't even want the kill if it's not a headshot. Whether you're spraying, tapping, peeking, crouch firing, whatever the case, you should be focusing on getting every single bullet to hit the enemy's head. And it's very likely that you'll actually perform worse when you start to play Deathmatch this way, but over time, as this becomes the habit, you'll perform way better than before because you have that good habit as an instinct now, and that will transfer over into real games as well. And another incredible habit to focus on is to learn to use good angles. Now, I've talked about this before, but in case you're not familiar, a good angle is an angle that you're farther from the obstacle that blocks your vision from the enemy than they are to the obstacle. Now, in the simplest terms, this is because the player model's shoulders and the side of the head stick out farther than the character's eyes and mouth area, which is where the camera actually comes from, is where they see from. So the closer you are to an object that you peek out from, the longer the enemy has to see you before your camera actually peeks around the corner and you're able to see them. Now, whenever you're learning to use good angles, you should be focusing on backing up to the back of walls before peeking and backing up when you expect an enemy to peek you. This gives you more distance from the angle, thus giving you a little bit of extra time. Now, here we're talking about fractions of a second of a difference in each angle, but that extra reaction time adds up and will no doubt increase your win percentage in duels across all of the duels that you play. So, when you're focused on creating good habits, feel free to utilize any habits that you can think of that you might need to implement into your game, but the two I see the most necessary are training yourself to go for headshots and optimizing your distance to the angle whenever you're peeking or getting peeked. But with all of this being said, you should also be setting aside specific goals to work on as well. Now, there are probably a million different goals that you could set for yourself when going into a deathmatch in Valorant, but I recommend sticking to one or two specific goals so you don't overload yourself and you can actually focus on those in depth. And the ones that I see the most commonly needed are practicing spray control, practicing movement and peaks, crosshair placement and getting familiar with different weapons. So first things first, let's talk about spray control. As we probably all know at this point, the spray patterns in Valorant are somewhat random and somewhat set, meaning the spray pattern follows a set path, but deviates slightly to fully random depending on how long you're firing the weapon. Which means that learning spray control can look a few different ways. One way is to teach yourself to start looking at the sway of the weapon to control your spray pattern, which is when you should start taking longer engagements, and instead of tapping, you should be full spraying at your target every time you start shooting and watching your gun in your peripheral and pulling your mouse in the opposite direction that the gun sways towards. This is because the visual cue of the gun swaying is actually where the bullets are starting to fire. So when the gun swaps from shooting up and to the left, it will sway to the right, and then it will start shooting up and to the right whenever it does that. And the other way to learn your spray control is to start pacing your shots, because usually you just don't want to full hold down left mouse button and spray out your entire clip trying to kill someone. Okay, so the Vandal takes 4 shots to kill at any distance. Now this means you can train yourself to go for a 5-round burst if you're extremely accurate, but realistically a 7 to 8 round burst is going to be pretty common and pretty standard for what you're trying to do at a long range. So you want to train yourself to go for that 5 to 7 round burst depending on how accurate you are, before letting your recoil reset and then firing another burst. This is because before that gun gets to the 8th or 9th shot, you can be almost perfectly accurate. So you can train yourself to pace your shots, let your recoil reset while you're moving and evading bullets, and continuing the fight with near perfect accuracy. This is something we see pros do so often, and learning this type of self-control in duels will help you get out of sticky situations where you just get stuck in a 50-50 having to hold down that left mouse button and full spray, hoping that you get that last bullet to kill the person when you have no control over where the bullets are actually going. And then we have movement and peaks, which honestly, with the amount of people in this game who wide swing around every corner, movement and peaks is probably one of the most important things we should be focusing on. Now, when focusing on your movement and peaks, you should be visualizing the angles that are around the corner that you're about to peek, and one by one, you should perfect peek each and every one of those corners and angles. And you should be ready to fire each time you peek around a little further. This way you're training yourself to isolate all of the excess angles instead of peeking all of the angles at once and not knowing where you're going to need to shoot. And the other thing you should be focusing heavily on is to make sure when you're peeking a common angle, peek it perfectly from a decent distance from the wall, and you peek it perfectly to where you can just see the person whenever you stop. This gives you the most amount of time to react and hit the shot, and the enemy the least amount of time to react and hit the shot because you're moving less distance before you stop and start shooting. Now, combining this with playing angles properly, it will win you an incredible amount of duels that you wouldn't even come close to winning without. And along with those peaks, there are operator jump peaks, which is where you're flying around a corner with an operator and jumping past the angle so you maintain movement speed, and it actually allows you to scope in before you hit the ground so you're ready a little bit faster to hit the shot and you're coming out a little bit faster as well. And honestly, this is a very difficult peak to get right a lot of times, and deathmatch is going to be one of the best ways for you to develop the muscle memory for this. So get in there, grab your operator, ignore all chat because they're going to rage at you for picking it up, and practice your jump peaks. And then we have crosshair placement to focus on. Now, when you're focusing on crosshair placement, it gets much easier when you're envisioning each angle and spot you think an enemy can be whenever you're walking around your corner. And when you're doing that, you want your crosshair to be perfectly head level with where the enemy would be playing. Now, by doing this, you learn the map so much more effectively, and you start to learn head levels, which are both vital parts of Valorant. You should also try to smooth your crosshair placement out by holding your crosshair on the angle that you think an enemy can be, and continuously keep it there while you walk around so you can develop the ability to trace walls and angles while moving. And crosshair placement is one of those things that you feel like you're getting worse whenever you first start doing it because you're focusing so much on the crosshair that your reaction time actually gets a little worse. But as you get better at it and it becomes instinct, that it's going to be a huge increase in performance because you have less distance you have to move your crosshair before you hit that head. And finally, we have learning different weapons. Now, honestly, pistol rounds in Valorant are so important that going into a deathmatch and playing with a ghost or a classic so you can learn the strafe shoot timings or the tap fire timings with the weapons, and not to mention that you're playing against enemies with real weapons, that kind of difficult training environment can make you a pistol round god, increasing your win percentage and rank by a ton. Or you could focus on using the sheriff to become an eco round monster by learning how to one tap with a counter strafe and a quick flick. Or you could be that guy that everyone hates in a deathmatch, running around with the operator. But honestly, deathmatch is there to help you improve, so I don't fault you at all for picking up the operator because you have to develop your reaction time when holding angles with an op. learn the timing for peeking aggressively and jump peeking, and learning what angles you can get away with when opping in general. So whether people say opping is a crutch or it's overpowered, it does take some skill to master. So pick up the operator, get into deathmatch, mute all chat, and start playing your peeks aggressively. So when you're focusing on deathmatch, focus on something specific for improvement, because developing good habits and having a goal for improvement will skyrocket that improvement by a ton. So now that we've gone through all of this about improving by using deathmatch, how do you actually win in a deathmatch? Now, I think we've all been tilted at some point in deathmatch having everyone pre-fire you before you even come around a corner. Well, this is because the radar in deathmatch has to become a part of your gameplay. This lets you know the areas of the map to go to for action and allows you to pre-fire corners and angles that an enemy has to be playing at. Also, in playing deathmatch, while opping is kind of annoying to play against, it's not going to be the best strategy to win with because it's difficult to rack up multi-kills and it requires you to wait on enemies to peek you instead of you being proactive and peeking them. And the basic strategy for peeking enemies in deathmatch is to run until you get close enough where you can peek the enemy, shift walk for just a second to throw off their sound cues, and then perfect peek, kill them, pick up health if necessary, and rinse and repeat. But the overall best strategy to win by far is area camping. And if you play Call of Duty, you likely already know what I'm talking about, but you want to pick an area of the map where you spawn and protect that area with your life. Like U-Haul on Bind, you're not technically camping the front side because you're also walking to the back side to try and pick up kills, but then you also walk back to the front side and try to pick up kill there as well. And you continuously walk back and forth to the front and the back of U-Haul, mixing up your peaks and being a complete nuisance to everyone else in the game because it's such a high traffic area and you already have the area locked down. So sit there, watch the map, aggro peek when you see an enemy peeking one of your entrances, and post up there for your life because the enemies are bound to get tilted and run it down over and over just trying to kill you and get you out of your spot. But as soon as they do, find a new spot and do the same thing there, and rinse and repeat until you reach that 30 kill mark. But ultimately, whenever you're playing to win on deathmatch and playing to improve on deathmatch, they are completely polar opposites. When you're playing to win on deathmatch, you're playing slow, passive, not focusing on much, and just trying to stay alive and watch the minimap, when instead you should be focusing on in-game scenarios that can translate into real games and you actually become better at Valorant instead of just winning random deathmatches that don't actually do a lot for you or mean much. And remember, if you want to improve, win more gunfights, and get the rank you've always wanted, then check out SkillCapped.com. The link is in the description below. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope you learned a little bit about deathmatch because it is one of the best ways to improve as long as you're doing it correctly. So get on that grind, be honest with yourself, and pick some things you need to work on so you can continue to improve and climb those scoreboards. As always, we here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching and make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn those notification bells on because we have a ton more comprehensive premium guides coming your way. And I want to thank you for spending this little bit of your day with us. I'm Notorious Dub, signing off.